what does that actually maybe look like? Because sometimes people might be responding with avoidance and not even really noticing it. So what are some of the things that they might notice or connect with?
Yeah, yeah. So overall, like the conscious or subconscious thoughts or behaviors that
Mhm.
keep you from avoiding sex. And so that might be things that are typically conscious or people are typically aware of, are things like just feeling anxious when it comes to sex or any kind of intimacy, feeling overwhelmed in their lives, especially when sex kind of gets brought up or dating gets
Mhm.
brought up, or feeling angry or resentful around these topics. So those might be some pretty obvious indicators that sexual avoidance is a barrier in moving forward with a sexual relationship that feels better. But there are some other things that tend to happen, like that are really subtle, that my clients have shared with us, with me, with you, like, and I've just kind of heard and experienced myself too, is things like when you get into bed and there's this moment with a partner where it's like, okay, well, we could make some time for sexual intimacy or just emotional intimacy, but instead it's like, okay, I'm just going to get on my iPad or I'm just going to read or, um, just using some sort of distracting component that can also be like pets in the bed and just being like, oh, well, Fluffy sleeps better when, or like, we all sleep better when Fluffy's in the bed too. Like that can be such a like,
Mhm.
triangulation of keeping sex and intimacy at a
Mhm.
distance, and where you can kind of point to like, well, it's this thing is, the reason that
Mhm.
I don't feel up to it. Um,
Mhm.
it can also be like just feeling an internal or an actual withdrawal from a partner or a cringe if they come in
Mhm.
to give a kiss, or there's some sort of like comment where you can tell, and there's this like subtle underneath dance where maybe the other person is like, I want to, and you pick up on that, and so then it's like, oh, I don't want to, or you stay with
Mhm.
the kiss, but inside the body's like, oh, I would rather be doing something else.
Mhm.
Um, Also creating like busy work, like making filling
Mhm.
your schedule so much that you have a
Right.
reason to not be sexual, which is like totally understandable. And
Mhm.
just having like a full schedule or a to-do list, or reasons why you don't have time for sex.
Yeah.
um, and then another one that I thought was always interesting, and like, again, like I've experienced myself, was like kind of feeling relieved when I knew my partner was like unavailable, like if they're
Mhm.
starting their menstrual cycle or out of town for a few
Mhm.
days. Like it's like, oh good, I know that
Mhm.
I don't have to do that dance of avoiding sex with them.
Mhm.
I don't have to disappoint my partner. I don't have to feel guilty. I don't have to question
Right.
what's wrong. Yeah, so like those are common ways that I see, the avoidance of
Yeah.
sex coming up.
Yeah. And even with that last one, something that I've heard and experienced also is actually it's really interesting that this can be a type of avoidance is initiating when you know that your partner won't be able
Oh,
to. So there's that sense of, look, I initiated, I did it. It's on you that this didn't happen, but actually on some level, the intentional choice of aha, when you're not available, then you're rejecting me. And then now I can say, look, I did try. And the rejection on me can also sometimes then be used as like the reason why I'm not going to want to have sex later. Right.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
We get so tangled up in
Mhm.
this web of challenges when it comes to sex, when we don't address these sort of patterns. And I
Mhm.
think removing any sort of like guilt or shame that gets attached to
Mhm.
this process. Like a lot of people can hear that and be like, oh my gosh, like I do that. Like, oh wow, I feel so bad. And it's like, no, no, no. I mean, you can feel the feelings that you're feeling.
Mhm.
And this isn't, we don't talk about these things to bring up and point
Yeah.
out the ways in which we start to get, tangled up in it, but just recognizing,
Mhm.
oh, these are the barriers. And how can we remove those barriers now that we're aware that they're happening? Because when things happen under the surface, we can't do anything to access them and to do some shifts and
Right.
changes. So yeah, it's so important to take a look at how do we subconsciously in like kind of enable our ability to avoid sex,
Yeah.
or our partners, like, you know, and again, this dance like really becomes a thing of like, what is your dance with your partner, and how do you both contribute to that process, if you know, if a person is partnered, and then if they're not, like, what are ways in which we stop ourselves from moving forward and having that kind of sexual interaction.
Yeah. 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 And, and like you've shared and, and I'll share too, is that this is something, it's an experience that a lot of people have at different times in their lifetime, is that sense of avoidance. And it's something that happens to sex therapists too, that, we get into
Totally.
that space of sex avoidance from time to time. And depending on what might be going on, or like what other context is happening in the relationship in our lives. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, a very common experience. And the more we are aware of the barriers in the process and what contributes to it, the easier we can identify, like, oh, there I go doing that thing again. Okay, let me see what I need in order for me to not do that on a subconscious or conscious level.